another chance. Desperate another chance. I am. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, Identity Coach Michelle. And it's Michelle here. So today I wanted to talk about forgiveness. Not necessarily forgiving other people. Well, this can come with forgiving other people depending on what it is, but forgiving yourself. As I go through the rediscovery stage in my life where I am rediscovering myself, but also finding out things about myself, like new things about myself. And I am also finding out certain things about my past that it didn't dawn on me, but now it makes so much sense. And I know you may be wondering, what is she talking about? Well, recently I found out that I have ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD. And, you know, the more I thought about it, the more I realized how I've always had ADHD. I never got diagnosed for it. And um, my mother didn't think to get me diagnosed for it either. She didn't think to take me to the doctor and, have me get any testing done. Not only do I have ADHD, I also have a learning disability that I struggled with all throughout my school years, pretty much growing up. Um, and this is actually something that I recently spoke to my therapist about. It's so crazy how one thing can lead to another thing. And what I mean by that is now that I've been diagnosed with ADHD, the more research you do on ADHD, um, the more information you come across, it leads you to other pieces of information. And that opens up like another door. So I found out. So even though ADHD, um, it stands alone, a lot of the times ADHD can co occur with other things. So even though ADHD stands alone, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which is characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. But it can co occur with other things like depression. It can co occur with other things like learning disabilities, just to name a few. And so finding out this, information, it kind of made me go like, wow, okay. And you start doing more digging and I was like, okay, this is something that I was battling the whole time and I did not know it. But home life for me as a child, I had a lot of good memories as a child, but I also had some not so good memories as a child. I think that, can be said for a lot of us. Um, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I struggled academically in school. I struggled for many, many years, pretty much all throughout my school years. From grade school all the way up to high school. I just struggled. And I remember my mom having meetings with the teachers, and I remember my mom just being determined. At one point, especially when I was in high school, I remember my mom just being really determined that I was not going to graduate with a certificate, and that she wanted me to graduate with my high school diploma. I remember my mom fighting and saying, "No, my child is going to graduate with her high school diploma. She's not coming out of school with a certificate." So um, I do remember that much. And the struggle that I endured. So one of the biggest challenges was being able to understand certain information that was being taught to me in school, being able to comprehend what I was being taught. Now, here's the thing. I was very good in English. English was my strongest subject. So I had absolutely no problems with English. I had no problems with reading comprehension skills, English, writing, reading, all of that was very strong. It was actually my math that was really, really major for me. That was a huge downfall for me. And when you think about math, you also have to look at science as well. And so, because math was involved in science, although there were certain things in science that I understood, that I could comprehend, there was other things in science like formulas and things like that that I had a hard time understanding, because the numbers, the formulas, comprehending, how to solve it, how to get it, it just did not make sense to me. And I held resentment towards my mom. The reason why I held resentment towards my mom, because on one end, she was advocating for me. She was advocating for me to the teachers at the parent teacher conferences. However, at home, it was different. When it came to me learning and understand and grasping onto the information, at home was completely different. Okay. So my sister, who's older than me, I always tell people my sister was just naturally smart. She just got it. She was able to comprehend everything that was taught to her. Once you showed her how to do something, she grasped on to that, and she was able to take that information, and, she was able to retain it, and she could tell you what she learned. She could show you what she learned. And even if it was something that she didn't understand, eventually she got it. It just clicked for her. Me, on the other hand, not so much. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and I'm gonna get to the point because I realize I'm probably taking the long way. At home, I did not get that help. While my mom was advocating for me at the parent teacher conferences and, discussing my future. And, you know, I was not sitting in on those meetings, so I do not know what was being said. I would get bits and pieces of information in regards to what was being discussed about me and my education and my learning abilities and, my future, my skills, things like that. I did not get any help at home when it came to schoolwork. Um, my mom, she graduated high school, and my mom even went to she went to community college, and she was able to get certified and certain things that she was working towards and things like that. I don't know if it was because my mom, I don't know if she felt stressed out being a single mom herself. I do know there were times that my mom had her own things that, she was dealing with. Um, sometimes my mom would, you know, deal with, depression, or, she would be working or whatever like that. But I never had the type of, when it came to my education, my mom was not the type of mom to say, "Oh, come on, we're going to learn this. We're going to make sure you get this because I want to make sure you understand what's going on. So we are going to do this." I did not have the mom that had the flashcards. I did not have the mom that found activity books or learning programs or tutors for her child, because she wanted to make sure that her child got it and her child understood. And she, I just didn't she that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And I love my mom. My mom did the best that she could do, but um I needed that supportive foundation early on, especially when it came to my education, and I did not get it. I didn't get it. And what ended up happening was it caused me to not care. It caused me to not care. And even as I became older, of course, I continued to struggle. But I would try my best to focus, to pay attention, to understand what was going on. A lot of times I was afraid to ask for help because I didn't want to look stupid. Because I mean, growing up, kids, you got bullied, you got joked, you got picked on, and you had to go back to school the next day and face, the same people. And that's kind of that, that's still the way it is today, but now they have, kids today have social media, so it's like worse when it comes to the bullying. Sorry about that. My throat started getting kind of dry. So, um, I did have remedial classes that I would, go to for extra help, to get extra help. But it was like I just math was like a foreign language to me. It was like a foreign language to me. I just did not understand it. And I do feel like it's because, well, first of all, I did not have that foundation wasn't laid. When you're a little kid and you're learning the basics, and you're figuring out the basics. And, when you get past the basics, like the colors and the shapes and, the basics of the numbers, and it starts to get a little bit more technical, So you're starting to learn, how to do division, how to do your times tables, how to understand, you know, uh, fractions and integers and, whole numbers and things like that. Um, that foundation, um, it wasn't laid. It wasn't laid. I'll never forget when I believe I was in the third grade and we were introduced to times tables in the third grade. We were introduced to division and times tables in the third grade, and we had to practice our um our timetables, and our teacher wanted us to learn our timetables so we could get she made these little licenses, and it was called a math license, and it had our picture on it, and it was basically like just a cute little badge saying that we memorized all our times tables and we knew what our times tables was. And I remember telling my mom, saying, "Hey mom, we have to learn how to do our times table, so I need help." My mom was like, "Okay." And that was it. We never got back around to it. I brought it up to her again. We never did anything in regards to that. I did not get my math license. I didn't get my math license. Um and I'm not trying to, blame my mom, because even though, things, when you're a child, it's completely different from when you're adult. You know what I'm saying? And so, um I kind of went through this rebellious phase growing up. Um I did a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily say acting out per se, but I did go through like a rebellious stage. I was very vocal in how I felt. I didn't hold back. I didn't sugarcoat. Um and I wasn't like a bad kid. Like I really wasn't. Even though I did go through a rebellious stage, I wasn't a bad kid. But that's what I got called. That's what I got called. I got called the bad kid. And I also got compared to my father when it came to different things. I got compared to my father, which were not good things. They were not good things. And so a lot of this just, it followed me. It followed me through my adult years. No, I'm not gonna lie. I've always known how to conduct myself. So I've never been the type of person who's like on the job, you know, being, acting ignorant, being disrespectful, acting a fool, all of that stuff. I've never been that type of person. But if it showed in other ways, like when it comes to like personal relationships, or dealing with other people, making certain life choices and decisions which were probably not the best, but out of out of impulsivity, things like that. Just getting in, myself in certain situations and stuff, growing up in your 20s. You're just doing, and you're not, thinking, and then everybody's jumping all down your throat. So, but yeah, in my teens, I was labeled, you know, pretty much the problem child, the bad one. I'll never forget my sister saying she's the bad one and I'm the good one. Little stuff like that. everything that, I've had to work really hard to heal from. And this is not to, because I just, and I do apologize, but this is something that I'm learning how to be mindful of because I do have ADHD. Like how I jumped from one topic to another topic. Okay, so let me get back on topic. So the point of the matter is that I basically struggled um, in school, and the parental foundation that it would have probably been beneficial to me to have that parental foundation, to have that consistency. It would have probably helped a whole lot, even though I probably, I still probably would have struggled, but just being able to have that foundation as a child from her parent, it could have probably, I probably wouldn't have suffered as much, academically, um, as I did. But I realized that, and I was talking to one of my girlfriends about this, and she said, when you were in school, she said, there probably wasn't, a name for it because, um, and I got a feeling this is going to be a part two. I got a feeling this is going to be a part two to this. So, what I found out I had all this time was ADHD plus, it's called dyscalculia. Okay, and so dyscalculia is one of the learning disabilities. So the learning disabilities are a range of conditions affecting specific areas of learning, like reading, writing, or math. And I already told you reading and writing was my strong suit. So I didn't have any issues with that. Math was my biggest issue growing up. And I still kind of struggle with it a little bit today. I'm not even going to lie, but I've gotten better at comprehending certain things about it, but it's still a lot of it. It's like if you put it in front of my face, it's like a foreign language. So, um, dyscalculia is what, I just, being able to pinpoint now as an adult what I was dealing with then as a child, like all those years, it kind of, it weighs heavy on you because, and the reason why it brought about resentment towards my mother is because I felt like my mom didn't try hard enough in trying to figure out and trying to pinpoint exactly what my needs were academically, what could help me progress academically. And I had already taken on this attitude like, I don't care, this non motivated attitude. My self esteem was really low. My confidence was really low. I already felt, I'm just going to be honest, I felt stupid because I couldn't grasp this information. I couldn't understand this information. And I literally, personally, I thought I was stupid. I felt stupid. I did. But, and, I also got to take in consideration the fact that, you know, and I don't want to bring race into the picture, but sometimes, you know, your white counterparts, they don't go through the same struggles that their black counterparts do. I'm sorry. I'm not even trying to bring race into it, but this is something that's been proven and spoken about time and time again. Yes, I struggled academically. No, I don't feel like my mom, you know, did enough. But my mom was probably working with what she was given to work with. But that doesn't mean you can't push the barriers. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, for me personally, even if I had, someone from a school say, "Oh, we can only do this, that, and this," or, even if, I did have someone try to give me a limited amount of options and say, I can only do this. I would not, for me personally, I wouldn't have just left it at that. I would have took it a step further. Like, what can I do to help my child like better herself? Like, what can I do to help my child progress, advance, you know, to help her progress academically? What is it that can be done? But like I said, I was not in those meetings. Those meetings were about me. Was I included in those meetings? No, I was not included in those meetings. Um, so yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it right here. This is gonna be part one, and I am going to work on part two, and I have them both uploaded and ready to go. This is not only me rediscovering myself. This is not only me sharing this, you know, for my healing, but this is for other people out there who may have struggled with the same things that I went through growing up. This is for people out there who have kids and you notice that your child's learning the way they learn or how they learn, might not, if you're a parent, and you are, an active part of your child's life. And, as parents, you pay attention, what can my child understand? What can they not understand? What is, I'm encouraging you to dig a little deeper, pay extra attention to what your child may be going through, because it could very well be linked to something. And, if there are resources out there, if there is help out there, then you can take the necessary steps to do what you have to do to ensure that your child gets that help. And I also want to say that I am in no way, um, coming down on my mother. Like I said, I do love my mom. My mom was a single mother. She raised me and my sister by herself. So I do understand that my mom, she probably, she did the best she could do with what she could do. So, this is not me bashing my mom or coming down on my mom, anything like that. But this particular part in my life, when it came to my education and academically, I just got to keep it real. I did not get that support at home. I just didn't. And this is just, me sharing the pieces of myself that I have come to discover since being diagnosed with ADHD. So it's just allowing me to um, see more things, understand more things, figure out more things, get clarification on more things. And it's just got me doing a lot of reflecting. It's got me doing a lot of thinking. And yeah. So this is part one, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off so that I can start with part two. So, all right, you guys, stay tuned for part two. This is forgiving myself for what I didn't know, healing, and moving forward.